Hi, my name's Kelly. I'm a CBT therapist and forensic psychologist, and today I wanted to talk about what it's like to be a forensic psychologist. I've done one of these videos before, but I wanted to explain about how it feels as a person to be placed in this role. As you can imagine, we work with people who have offended and or have mental health difficulties or personality difficulties as well. And within this role, it can be really all-encompassing. It's something that we often do because we've got a passion for it, because I think if you didn't have a passion for it, I wonder if you'd actually be doing it. But one of the things I think is really important as a forensic psychologist is to recognise our own emotional reactions, because we're not robots. And if we didn't feel things, I would be concerned why we're not feeling things. Is there some sort of dissociation going on? But we need to be aware that sometimes we're going to work with cases that can be difficult for us, whether that is because of how we feel about something personally, taking the person out of the profession. It could be because we've been impacted by a particular crime. But it's important to recognise how we're feeling. And I've done another video on supervision, and this would be a really important thing to take to supervision. If we are finding that we are experiencing a certain emotion, or we're finding it difficult to work with someone who has committed a particular crime. So firstly, being able to recognise our own emotions. And in doing so, as I said, supervision is one of the ways that is super helpful for our own self-care professionally. Then taking ourselves outside of work and making sure that we are looking after ourselves. It sounds really simple, but just making sure that we are putting ourselves first, we are caring for ourselves, thinking about our work-life balance. Are we having enough time to check out of work and go into like our personal self? And sometimes making time for that. When I used to commute more to work, my drive was my time to unpack. I would listen to podcasts, listen to music, and that was my time to create that distinction between my work self and my personal self. And I really think it's important that you get that distinction at the end of your day. And if you are working from home, changing your position is really helpful. Even if you work, say if I worked in this room, when I finish work, I would move and put myself into another room if I wasn't going out or doing something. And it's just allowing yourself to physically move from one space to another, and making sure at the end of work that we are doing something that is for us. It isn't necessarily related to work. So thinking about, okay, so what are the areas that I know that feel good for me and make me feel good, and then being able to work through them and put them into place. And then another thing that I often think that we have to consider when we are working with sometimes some difficult client groups is compassion fatigue. So compassion fatigue is when as it kind of explains, that it's really difficult for us to be able to express compassion because we've been giving out loads of compassion to people, and then it's just like, oh, I've got nothing left in my pot. I've got literally no compassion to give. We can often notice that this is an often sign of burnout. So if we're starting to become burnout, we also often become like less really interested in what we're doing or really caring for other people. So again, taking it to supervision. But as I said, with the compassion fatigue, and we feel kind of our compassion tank is empty, to refill it, that's where the self-care comes in, looking after ourselves, being able to build that up. Because if we're not able to show compassion, how are we able to support and to help people? So it's important for us to do that, and especially with the client group in forensic psychology, because it may be difficult for us to work with a particular client group or crime because of how we feel about them personally. Kind of, we've taken it to supervision, we're working with it, but then we've got compassion fatigues, and that's another layer that then makes it difficult to be able to effectively manage our own emotions. And then another thing that often links with compassion fatigue is vicarious trauma, so secondary trauma. Often we are reading a lot of cases, we are engaging with people, we're often sometimes hearing about some crimes or some events that people have been through, maybe not necessarily the crime itself, but maybe something that someone went through as a child. and that was traumatic, or in their adolescence, or even someone's time in custody that can be traumatic. And even though the trauma hasn't happened to us, we can experience that sometimes. Especially if we're quite visual, we can visualize, or even hearing about it is enough, and that can lead to secondary trauma or vicarious trauma. And again, a way to be able to manage this is to be able to look after ourselves, whether again through supervision, self-care, looking after our work-life balance. And these are all real things, and they're all things that anyone can experience regardless of their level of expertise or their level of experience. No one's immune to experiencing burnout, compassion fatigue, vicarious trauma. So it's really being able to be kind to ourselves and be aware that that can be something that can happen. But the key is to being aware that it can happen and then doing something about it. So this isn't to put anyone off, because I absolutely love my job, but I just wanted to share kind of some of the psychological impacts of being a forensic psychologist, but also more importantly how to be able to look after yourself if any of those difficulties do come up for you. So I hope you found that helpful. If you want to learn more, then please drop a message in the comments letting me know what you'd like me to talk about more. As I said, I've got loads of other videos, so please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.